We are now recording.
Okay. I want to order the Lowell City Council for February 16th at 7:01. Roll call, please.
Councilor Harris.
Got on mute, Gail.
Just raise your hand. Councilor Harris is with us.
Yes.
Councilor Stratus.
Present.
Councilor Droft.
Here.
Councilor Myers.
I'm here.
And Mayor Bennett is with us as well.
Okay. Okay, we have a quorum. We can go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America,
to the republic
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mayor is having some technical difficulties, so hold on. On my desktop, I had last month's agenda and everything on it, and it just when I saw January, I knew things were bad. So anyway, I'm back with this again. First thing is, anybody have any changes, needs, or desire to change anything on the agenda tonight or to add to it? Okay, not hearing or seeing anything. First thing up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes of the city council regular meeting for January 19th, 2021, financial report for December 20th for 2020, and the check register for January 2021. And an item may be removed from the consent agenda to be discussed as a first business item if anyone desires. Otherwise, need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
I'll
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next up is public comments. Anything from the public as of yet? Okay. We'll come back to you later. Okay, moving right along. We're up to city administrator's report. That's on page 72 if you want to advance to that. Okay. Mr. Cottle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, city councilors, members of the public. Good evening. Give a brief update on activities. We had a community code update meeting on January 27th. This was a virtual open house to discuss proposed changes to the Lowell Municipal Code for the downtown area. This is associated with the downtown master plan and is in fact the first item on the to-do list for the downtown master plan. I had some conversations with a code committee member and a member of the Transportation and Growth Management Department on ways to increase public involvement for our next virtual open house, which will take place sometime later this spring. We had a meeting with the Ford Family Foundation regarding the library renovation project. We are still in the running for that grant application with a decision possible sometime in the spring. The Oregon Parks and Recreation Department did not award our grant for the Rolling Rock Park update, but I am having some conversation with staff on how we can at least start doing some renovations to the park in time for the summer season. We held a planning commission meeting on February the 3rd, where 2 land use applications were approved, one of which is forwarded to you for your consideration tonight. The Blackberry Jam Committee will be meeting tomorrow to discuss in more detail if we'll be able to hold the festival this year, as well as any other possible festivals that we could hold in light of COVID. I also had numerous contacts with our other partners in the community, such as the Forest Service and the Army Corps of Engineers. I'll be happy to take any questions about this report, Mr. Mayor.
I was there. Go ahead,
Go
Dan.
ahead, Don.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeremy, was there any feedback from the parks, the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department as to why we didn't get any funding for the Rolling Rock improvements, so we could maybe, make any changes to a future application or submission for better chances of approval?
The grant representative said that anybody who wanted to receive some feedback to let them know, and they would get to that within the next few weeks because they're trying to wrap things up. But I am on that list to get feedback so we can have a stronger application next time.
Thank you.
I understand your concerns, Tim. We put a lot of money into buying extra land and everything else, and renovations and things out there, with the hope, desire, understanding that there would be a short list of that would be near the top whenever we went in to ask for money. But I guess there was some 30 people or 30 cities looking to get it, and as is usually the case, the bigger cities, bigger planning committees, bigger everything, it looked like they may well get the money. We hope to get something out of it, but in the future. But I think it's a good idea to start getting the thing, the lawns green for the summertime, and at least people can play on it and enjoy it to some degree. And I did set in on the Ford Foundation, and Mr. Call did a great job of having all the facts, details, and everything available. And whenever he was asked, he had good responses, quick responses, and I think that helped us a lot. I think it put us in a very favorable light with the Ford Foundation. So, and that was. I appreciated, I enjoyed sitting in on it then. So when everything's going well, I enjoy things like that. So hopefully good things in the future. Anybody else?
How far out are we on the Ford Foundation? Do they have any concrete timelines?
I need to get some more information back to them. I need to sharpen my pencils and get them some more concrete numbers and plans so that they have an exact number that we're asking for.
So I know in your little email that you sent all of us, you were talking about architects. Do we really need architects, or can we just bring in contractors to give us bids? Because the architect's going to cost you anywhere between 20 and 30,000. And I know this because I have remodeled plants in Eugene, and it's going to cost us some money if we need architects.
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Mayor. That's a conversation that I'd like to have with each of you to get a sense for your, what your ideas are and which direction that you would like to take this. I think an architect, I'd really like to have a one-on-one conversation with each of you to kind of explore these ideas. I'm not moving forward with this at this point. We're still trying to get some ideas and a plan together. But to your point, they would like us to go out and start getting some bids on this project, so we have some like I said, some concrete numbers to give them.
Go ahead. Yes.
If I can, isn't this more of a remodel of the building than, I mean, is that really going to take architects to remodel that building? We're talking about putting windows in and, setting up for the library and so forth. I guess I didn't think our plan included any really big issues. I
But
don't know.
I think an architect's job is to know the structural portions of it. A contractor does I mean, they know their part, but an architect would know the structural part. And since it's a public building, I think it's actually, I think we have to, some version of it.
I guess I just thought if we're not moving walls and adding on and doing that kind of stuff that, it wouldn't necessarily take, obviously a contractor. I don't
Right.
know. Anyway, just some thoughts.
I'd like to go back to the Rolling Rock Park. You guys had mentioned, I think this is more for Max than anybody. If we're going to be doing excavation and putting ditching into the park, any integration we can do of underground electrical at that point in time, because that's where the real money is in that kind of a project, is the digging of the ditch. It's not the cost of the pipe you throw in the hole. That if any pre-planning we can do of a simple layout of any electrical lines that can follow the same lines as the irrigation trenching you guys put in, we'd be ahead of the game if we got electrical line in the ground even for future at that point in time.
Makes sense.
My only thought would be, we have a plan for this library, and we have all kinds of, things that the public wanted in there, and, I think an architect will more specifically lay out what exactly those are, where they go, how they go, and everything like that. Yeah, they're gonna cost us money, but I have a feeling that if we don't have an architect and we go straight to a contractor, we're gonna get change orders and add-ons and things like that. That's gonna probably cover at least what the architect's gonna charge us. I think it nails down exactly what we want to do, how we want to do it, makes it easier for Mr. Cottle to track it. That's my gut feeling. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my gut feeling. Anyway. Mr. Cottle will be calling, talking to you and getting your input on which way to go. So, okay, next, any more questions on that? Next up is the Public Works, Mr. Baker.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Poor connection there for a second. Everybody was froze. I thought you guys were pranking me, so. Okay, Public Works report, Mayor Bennett Council, including your package, Public Works report. Excuse me, I do have some changes to this as of today, but we'll just go through here. If you guys have questions, feel free to stop me. As CA mentioned, we're working on alternative plans for obtaining some quotes for grading and irrigation in Rolling Rock Park. Tim, to add to your comment, that has always been a part of any scope we've had done there. So I've already contacted J&K just because they're in-house, just for some quick pointers and tips, and then also have brought it up to the engineer when we go to do this. Obviously, this would be a project that would have some engineering involved in it, just so it's proper. So that will be a part of it, Tim. And I'll, excuse me, if we get to a point where there's plans and everything, I'll make sure it's included in the plans. Last week, took an inventory of all the street signs in town, added some ordered some signs that need to be replaced, stop signs basically, and then a few street signs that have been missing or never were installed. For example, one of them was for Pacific Crestway, a little tiny panhandle lot down on the southeast side of Wetlow. And then we also ordered a few just to have on hand, just as things come up. Civil West was on site last week and met with staff and a contractor to fix a culvert And drain issues on D Street. This has been an issue since I've worked here. And speaking with the residents of that street has been an issue since well before I worked here. I do have a quote. I'm not prepared to bring to council yet. I think we need a little bit more planning on that. That is just simply add some inlets into a storm line. So there actually is a storm line already engineered that runs north and south on D Street, sits parallel to the water line. And there is nothing currently hooked up to it at all. So the big part of the job is already done. The most expensive part, of course, runs the entire length from a little over middle down to the south and ties into the 4th Street drainage, which is the new one that was put in the 90s. So got a scope of work to add a couple inlets to that, which will alleviate the drainage issues on the west side of the town. Most of you guys are familiar with that. Tim, I know you're familiar with it. You live on that street, so you've seen it a few times. So I'll be bringing a plan to you guys, most likely at the next work session. And just to go give you guys ideas of what's going on. J&K is working on some electrical issues with the caboose in Rolling Rock Park. Looks like maybe the dusk till dawn light failed. The lights have just stayed on for the last couple of weeks, I think. So nothing too major there. Excuse me. Water treatment plant, all 3 of the pumps, high pumps that we talked about last meeting. The 2 new ones are installed. Everything's tested, running. They're all in lead lag position. So currently the one's running, and we got one as a backup, and then we have one as a critical spare. So that's a little bit of a relief to get ready for summertime.
Good.
Waste, go ahead. Wastewater treatment plant collections, the east digester drain valve was replaced and the digester is now in service. This is the valve that failed actually right before the pandemic started. So the special order valve, we got the valve installed and backfilled and everything, and is now online. So that'll help alleviate the biosolids issue. We were getting a little bit full in that aspect. We also used the new tractor to start emptying out the drying beds a little bit, what little bit we can do with the tractor. This is a job specifically made for like a skid steer, since the subsurface of the drying bed is sand. We were able to get quite a bit out of it just using our tractor, just to get a little bit of a head start for when the weather does change and we can get the skid steer in there. So, and code enforcement, staff was received a signed towing contract from Dow Jones Towing and Bridge. That's actually not a true statement. I'm not exactly sure what she emailed me. She did sign the contract and emailed something, but it was not the contract. And then actually yesterday, I met with the second tower, which is Puddle Jumper Towing. They had 3 comments. The CA and myself are going to look at. We have a meeting on Thursday and get back to them. So it's been a long project to get a signed contract. So that would be a good step in the right direction for code enforcement for the city.
Any questions by anyone? Good, thank you, Max. Glad to see that.
I got a question.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Hi,
Do we have a do not enter sign at the west end of Lakeview?
We have the sign, but it is not installed. The sign is going on the handrail, and I did say there's a few other things to make on the report. I do have an update on the handrail / safety rail, which is on the far west side, north side of Main Street. It is near completion. All the material's been purchased. It's been welded. It's been cleaned up and painted before it gets installed. And as soon as that's installed, the signs will be put on there, Tim. Yep.
anything else? Next up is the police report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police report is attached for your information, logs 41 hours. I did have a conversation with Oak Ridge Police Department about some citizen nuisance complaints, which I forwarded to them. And I'd like to brag on Lieutenant Neil Ritz, who was with us this evening. He's done a fantastic job over the past few weeks working with us on some nuisance complaints. He's been pretty busy out there, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, Neil. Up to the new business having to do with the land use application For Sunset Hills, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go ahead and turn this over to Henry Hurley with LCOG, our planner. He has a presentation to make to the city council.
Thank you, Jeremy. If you want to pull up the slides, I can get that started.
Yes, give me just one moment.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. So I'll get started here. So good evening, everybody. My name is Henry Hurley with the Lane Council of Governments. Tonight, I'll be presenting about the Sunset Hills subdivision. Next slide, please. You can scroll to slide 2, Jeremy.
There we go.
Oh, thanks. So the proposal in front of you tonight has been reviewed by Planning Commission on twice. Once on January 6th. And January 6th, they moved to close the hearing, but continue to keep the record open. They came back on February 3rd with additional information in the form of a resolution list between Mia Nelson and the applicant and a revised utility plan. On February 3rd, Planning Commission reviewed the new materials and voted to recommend approval to City Council of the subdivision. Tonight, I'll briefly discuss some issues that were raised before and tell you how they've been resolved now. I'll give a brief overview of the proposal, go over some conditions, and offer a chance to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is also here tonight, so if you have any questions of them, you may feel free to ask them. Next slide, please. One issue that was brought up was there was identified previous condition of approval that was tied to lot 16, which is the entire property we're dealing with tonight. This issue was brought to our attention by Mia Nelson in her September 14th, 2020 letter. We looked into the issue and we found it to be valid and it should be addressed by the applicant. As such, the applicant revised their plan and showed a 50-foot right-of-way layout located south of lot 26 that would be preserved for future access. This future right-of-way will offer the city to develop lands north of that property when city infrastructure is provided to that property. Next slide, please. The other issue that was brought up was the three-phase power conduits. This issue was first raised again by Mia Nelson in her September letter. Without the three-phase power conduits, the city's high elevation reservoir that is contemplated is unlikely to be realized. The phase 3 power conduits can be laid along at the same time as other utilities are laid. The adjacent subdivision to the west previously laid the three power phase conduits. And it is again proposed to be those conduits to be extended for an eventual pump station for that water reservoir. When the last extension occurred, the city provided the applicant with a $4,000 reimbursement. It's anticipated the city would again offer some sort of SDC credit, waiver, or reimbursement for the costs involved with these three-phase power conduits. Those details don't have to be worked out now. They can be included in the development agreement between the city and the applicant. The applicant has indicated they are willing to provide these three-phase power conduits. Next slide, please. So the property is owned by Bain Investment Groups. It is for a 16-lot subdivision. It is zoned R1 and consists largely of wooded and treed areas and does contain some wetlands. The applicant has hired a wetland ecologist and has submitted a delineation to DSL, and they are currently reviewing that report. Also, I brought up the resolution list earlier. This was developed between the applicant and Mia Nelson, and it addresses her concerns, and it outlines some things that the applicant has agreed to do. The list, the items contained in that list, I'd just like to note is subject to review and approval by the city engineer, as they are largely technical in nature. As such, we recommend a condition of approval stating that that list was included in your packets as attachment S. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed layout. Lots 16 to 31 will be developed. This is the end of the 4th Street subdivision. The applicant owns no more land to be developed. 4th Street is already dedicated but not improved. Wetland will dead end to the north and to the south with a turnaround and be stubbed for future extension. Lots 23, 25, and 26 do have slopes of 15% or more, and therefore the hillside standards will be in play. The applicant has submitted a geotechnical report that is sufficient for the city engineer to review and consider while approving the site development plans. As I said earlier, there are some wetlands located on the southern portion of Wetlow Drive. The applicant has hired a wetland ecologist and completed a delineation, and that has been submitted to DSL. They have not concurred with it yet, but that is in the works. That'll be a condition for them to meet before they can commence any construction activities. Next slide, please. This is the revised utility map that was submitted on January 20th. This plan was essentially why the record was left open, so the applicant could take into consideration some public comments and the city engineer's comments and revise their utility map. This map was presented to Planning Commission on February 6th, and after they saw this map, they voted to approve the subdivision or recommend approval to City Council. Next slide, please. So staff finds that the subdivision can be approved subject to the findings and conditions contained in the staff report. Also recommend that you accept Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Next slide, please. Next, I will talk about the meat of the application, which are the conditions that the applicant has to meet. The first one is to submit a final grading plan for review by the city engineer. The second one gets at the heart of that wetland issue to receive their DSL permits. And a late addition to condition 2, we also added the U.S. Army Corps permits. There are separate permitting processes, so they'd have to complete both of those. Next slide, please. Condition 3 relates to the need for the final drainage plan to be reviewed by the city engineer. That plan shall be substantially the same that was already approved by Planning Commission. Condition 4 gets at the need to install fire hydrants at or near the western edge of Wetlow Drive. This was brought up by the city engineer and the fire chief. And I'll also note the resolution list also contains an update on the fire hydrants and what will be added by the applicant. Next slide, please. Condition 5 gets at the need for the applicant to construct sidewalks when they improve the streets. And then lots 16 and 17 will share a common access easement. That will be paved to a width of 20, or it'll be 20 feet wide, but 16 of it shall be paved up until the crest of the panhandle. Condition 7, similar. Lots 25 and 26 have a 25-foot access easement between them. This shall also be paved, and this also maintains the access to the home located above it on tax lot 100. Next slide, please. Condition 8 is kind of a catch-all for the public improvements. All public improvement plans need to be reviewed by the city engineer before approval. Condition 9 is the need for slope easements to be shown on the final plat. That's pretty standard. Next slide, please. Condition 10 is about the turnarounds. A no parking sign installed at the ends of the 2 turnarounds on both sides of Wetlow Drive. Condition 11 relates to the street sign names. The applicant shall submit a plan consistent with the code showing how the street name sign standards are met. Condition 12, relatedly, is about streetlights. They will be installed, and they need to submit a plan to the city showing how the standards are met. And also relatedly, 13, mailbox. The code requires the applicant to show how mailbox structures have been approved by the post office having jurisdiction over that area. There shall be a plat note on the final plat indicating that that has been approved by the post office. Next slide, please. 14 is also pretty standard. It relates to clear vision areas. Those shall be listed on the final plat as well. 15 relates to natural drainage ways to be shown on the final plat. The applicant's engineer indicated there's likely opportunities for them to use natural drainage ways. And if that's the case, there has to be a 15-foot setback. So those need to be shown on the final plat. If it turns out there are no natural drainage ways to be used, that's okay. The city will find that satisfied by confirmation between the applicant's engineer and the city engineer. Next slide, please. Condition 16 is also pretty standard. It's for the drainage easements to be sufficient width. The city engineer has indicated drainage easements are required for any and all lots on which water drains onto or across. Condition 17 is also fairly standard. It's to receive a pollution and erosion control permit from DEQ, and that is required for any disturbance 1 acre or greater. Condition 18 is for the utilities plan to be finalized by the city engineer. What was submitted is for tentative approval. There may be some slight changes that can occur during the construction drawing phase, and those will be handled between the city engineer and the applicant's engineer. Condition 19 is also pretty standard. It's for the final plat to contain all easements, dedications, covenants, conditions, or restrictions. Condition 20, there's presently a 40-foot wide access easement that traverses through the entire property. That's going to be vacated, and it's relocated in between lots 25 and 26 that I spoke to earlier, that allows that tax lot above it to maintain its access. Condition 21 is related to the hillside development standards. The applicant has to prepare site preparation and grading on lots 23, 25, and 26. Those need to be submitted to the city engineer. Next slide, please. Relatedly to the hillsides, a revegetation plan is required. That can be incorporated into the improvement agreement. That would be acceptable. Condition 23 is the need for the applicant's engineer to submit engineered plans 1 through 5 as seen in the code. Condition 24, the applicant shall submit final copies of each individual lot survey, geotech report, and development plans for each lot to the city for the city's record keeping purposes. Condition 25 also gets at the hillside standards, requires the purchasers of lots that contain 15% or more to receive the individual lot surveys, geotech reports, and engineering plans. Next slide, please. Uh, 26 is also fairly standard. It's the final plat shall show all the dedicated improvements. Condition 27 gets at the need for the city and the applicant to enter an improvement agreement, essentially outlining which improvements will be made and when. Condition 28 is related to that improvement agreement. It essentially says if the applicant does not complete said improvements by said time, the city can pull the bond or cause the applicant to complete the improvements, or city complete them on their own and bill the applicant. That's in the security agreement. Next slide. 29, there were some remaining issues that the city engineer wanted to see addressed. He thought that didn't need to be done before tentative approval. He thought that could be handled during the construction drawing phase when more detailed plans are usually drawn. So this just outlines where those comments are located in attachment H. And next slide, please. This is an important one that gets at those three-phase power conduits to be laid. Like I said, the applicant is willing to lay those, and the details can be included in the improvement agreement. If they're laid within the right-of-way, there won't need an easement, but if they go across any lots, they'll need to be placed in utility easement. We currently don't know the cost of this. Lane Electric has not done an assessment yet, but we don't think it's prohibitively expensive to complete this. And next slide, please. And this is the last one, getting back at that resolution list. Like I said, it was a list between Mia Nelson and the applicant to address their concerns. There are some technical issues in there, and the applicant is aware that, you know, the city engineer has final say so what happens in terms of technical improvements. So this essentially says that list is subject to review, approval, and modification at the city engineer's direction. And then next slide, please. The applicant is here. They'll have an opportunity to speak. Anyone can speak in support or neutral or opposition of the proposal. I ask that you give them the time that they need to talk about their proposal. And I'll end it here, Mayor, and turn it back, or Jeremy, I'll turn it back over to you. You can open the public hearing and go through that process.
Okay.
Okay. We can do that. What we'll do is we'll be going into public hearing. First thing we'll do is we'll close the regular session at 7:37, and we'll open the public hearing at 7:37. On public hearings, Oregon statutes require that council to hold public hearings on matters where the public can comment. Oregon's land use laws require cities to hold public hearings on certain types of land use decisions. The public will be allowed to make presentations, make representation to council, and have a reasonable opportunity to be heard concerning. What we'll be discussing tonight is a motion to approve the land use application 2019-04 and the matter of the Sunset Hills subdivision owned by Bayham Investments LLC and located on the assessor's map at tax lot 1901-1421-05000. Member of the council may, if they wish, ask questions of the presenters. The main function of the council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed topics. The chair will then close the public hearing, and the council will discuss the matter and render its decision. Okay. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak? Henry, you have someone there or for the public hearing? Mr. Call, do you know of anybody that?
Mr. Mayor, not that I know of, and I'm not seeing anybody on the screen here indicate that they would like to offer any comment. Not hearing any, not seeing any. The public hearing is closed at 7:39, and the regular meeting is reconvened. Mr. Cottle? At this time, since you've held the public hearing, it's open for city council deliberation. And after that, approval if city council so wishes.
Jeremy, if I'd like to just add, does the applicant want to make a statement about the proposal? He has the opportunity. He doesn't have to, but he may just offer. Dr. Bain, would you like to
Is
speak?
the applicant with us tonight?
He is. Dr. Bain is here.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm really, I think Henry said most everything that needs to be said. It was very comprehensive, and I appreciate the work that he's put into this and the Planning Commission. No, I'm excited to get building again in Lowell, so I'm open to any of your questions and hope that we can further this along.
I have a question, Doc. All the conditions they put on there, do you see those as being a complication for you going further with the construction, or are they things that you can, that you think you can meet pretty easily?
I think that in the interest of the master plan for Lowell, it will make things better in the long run. And a lot of the things that Ms. Nelson pointed out were actually really helpful for the big picture that we hadn't really considered when we were looking at it as a smaller project for just ourselves. So nothing's too onerous to overcome. So I think we can safely proceed with the qualifications that have been put forward.
We want it to be successful on both parts, for the city, for you, for the new residents and everything like that. So we want to start this off on the right step. I know you put a lot of time and effort into it, and we want to continue moving forward if we can. Anybody else have any questions, thoughts, questions? I guess at that point, then guess we're open to a motion. And I see the motion kind of here. Do we need to make any reference to all those conditions or anything like that, or just the motion to approve?
Jeremy, do you want to pull up the slides again? I have it outlined for the mayor.
Okay. I'll make sure we get the right wordage.
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay, go to the next one, Jeremy. So as I said earlier, I do recommend that you accept Planning Commission's recommendation based on the findings of fact, which will be signed by the mayor, that include all the conditions. The only edit I would make is that condition 2, which adds that Army Corps permit to be obtained. That's just to cover everyone's bases, because the DSL has permitting with respect to wetlands, and so does the Army Corps. So that is the literal only change that is presented to you tonight. So you could make a motion to approve the subdivision as contained in the findings of fact with the modification to condition of approval number 2 would be sufficient.
I'd like make a motion to approve the final orders and findings of fact for land use application 2019-04 with the minor edit to condition 2 in the matter of the Sunset Hills subdivision owned by Bayhen Investments LLC and located on Assessor's Map in tax lot 19-01-14-21-05000.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion to approve the land use application for that last screen that was on there. For Sunset Hills subdivision, land use 2019-04 and owned by Bayhan Investments, located on Assessor Map lot 19-01-14-21-0500, and to include the conditions number 2 for the approval by the Corps of Engineers, permits to be obtained for the wetland developments. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Time to start building. Thank you, Dr. Bayhan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Okay. Last item up appears to be having to do with the Blackberry Jam. And that's on page 393 in your packets. So, Mr. Connell, do you want to speak to that? I think you did a little bit already, but, say anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Blackberry Jam Committee will be meeting tomorrow night to discuss this in more detail. And I did receive some questions from city councilors on potentially discussing this amongst yourselves as well tonight. I'll be happy to relay your ideas or thoughts to the committee tomorrow and bring that back around once they have some ideas or a final decision. So essentially, I had a request to put this on the agenda just to get some ideas and a conversation started about this festival.
Anyone?
I'm just hopeful that we can move forward and do something community-based this summer. COVID killed the town spirit last year, and I think we need to revive it and celebrate Lowell again somehow. I mean, hopefully somehow.
Anyone else?
Well, I would second that. I'd really like to see us figure something out. I think people need stuff like this. It's just dragging on, and it's really hard on people. I don't know. I know it's really hard. I would even suggest that we plan ahead, even if we think that we could hit a wall at some point, but at least start moving forward so that we can do something if we're allowed to, or at least start looking at, what can we do that fits within the confines.
Smaller options, even just something.
Yeah, something. I don't know whether any way that we could even have something for the town and maybe not advertise it as widely. I don't know. I don't know if we could curtail the attendance somehow. I know that's probably kind of impossible, but mostly this town needs, I think, we just need something to look forward to. Of course, bringing people in from outside is a big deal too. So I know that's not
Right. It's a double-edged thing there.
Yeah, so I don't know. Have we seen any kind of guidance out? I mean, I haven't looked at CDC in terms of this kind of stuff. I don't know whether, I guess they're still saying no large groups. Anybody know?
I think you're right on that. And I do agree that, at this late moment, trying to put something major together may be a challenge, but if we can, kind of put some of the bare essentials, I don't know if they can do the auto show and stuff like that, but if they can put some bands on for the people to come and listen to the bands or, something of that nature, I'm sure a lot of the concession people that, nobody's been doing anything. And it would be good to actually, get into it. I guess the, first thing one thing we need to look at is there going to be a county fair, because that's usually the same weekend. And whatever they decide to do may help dictate what we can do. If they're going to have a county fair, then maybe we can look at it that way. But I agree, it would be a good, hopefully by July, enough people have gone around, gotten all their shots and everything that, but it's the end of July, so that's a good 4 months away. So, hopefully, this will be getting a little bit more under control. And, it's like you say, it's outdoors. They have horseshoe throwing. Those guys stay far from each other, the band. And I think, right now, to try to get people to even to stand close to each other would be a task. Everybody's so used to, getting their own little corner of the world and staying in it. I don't see people getting up too close together. So, and I take it the bands are still playing, but if we can have some sort of function, I think it would be good if we could pull it off. So, I support what the Blackberry Jam is trying to do, and it'd just be good to get their input back to us.
Well, a couple of things to think about is I don't know. I mean, there is talk of restaurants opening up. If restaurants open up, it seems that, you know, being outside and everything, we should be able to pull some stuff off. You know, I know this isn't Blackberry Jam, but the other thing, Jeremy, I would like to see, well, I guess that's the Blackberry Jam committee. I guess it would be Parks and Recreation, but I wonder if we can also talk about some smaller things like the movies in the park. If there's any chance we can get that going again this summer. People loved that and we didn't do it last year, but man, I'd love to see that. And that would be smaller groups. And I think we could distance people and still pull that off. So anyway, just throw that out there before we forget about it. But stuff like that, small things that we can do along with the Blackberry Jam, if that's going to be possible.
I would, if I could make one recommendation back to the Blackberry Jam, one of the aspects, I think breaking down the elements of the Blackberry Jam and seeing what we can plan ahead of time that we know we can pull off regardless of the situation should be prioritized. So things like the Blackberry Jam parade. Parades have been able to have been utilized throughout the COVID protocols, guidances from CDC, state, whatever. So kind of maybe if the Blackberry Jam was to kind of prioritize and categorize, and I think planning things that can go ahead no matter what situation we're in. And then I would say, you know, in the next category is what takes the minimal amount of monetary input to pull off if the situation is appropriate to hold the Blackberry Jam. That way, if at the last minute the rug gets pulled out from under it, you're not nobody's suffering a monetary loss or anything like that. So I think careful planning of what could be done, but yet if it went away at the last minute, nobody would be out or you know, harmed in any way. And kind of just go through the tree of all the events that occurred during the Blackberry Jam and kind of parse them out to what can be pulled off, regardless of the situations, what takes a minimal amount of input and planning to do that can be done at the last minute, or if it was to be taken away at the last minute, wouldn't be bad. So that's the kind of what I would say in terms of recommendations for the Blackberry Jam to look at to go forward with the lack of knowledge and foresight about what exactly where we're going to be in the end of July.
I agree.
What if we spread it out? What if we used, instead of putting it all in the park, if we were able to spread it out in some parking lots and, you know, kind of, I mean, we could use the parking lot right where you're sitting. Maybe the school, I don't know if that would help, but spread things out so that people aren't all in the park together at the same time. I don't know if that would help. Just an idea that, you know, we spread the vendors out farther and that way you don't have huge concentrations of people maybe in one place at a time. Maybe that would help. I don't know if that would work, but just a thought.
Another thought might be if we up our sound system a little bit. I already live at the far end of town from the stage, and I can actually hear some of the music that's going on. If we could up our output of our sound, we might be able to have some bands that just play and everybody can enjoy them in their own yards and barbecue. I mean, that's one thing that can be done that regardless of the situation, you know, those kind of.
Maybe some speakers. I don't know.
Yeah, some speakers on top of the pavilion, maybe where it would project more.
Blast it out where you live.
We blast it all over town.
You could also possibly do some kind of a live broadcast of that and stream it to the citizens of Lowell, as well as them being able to hear it just over the sound, you know, that's transmitted through the air. But maybe we could do a live broadcast and have that planned. And that if we have the Blackberry Jam, it's still okay. If we don't have the Blackberry Jam, the streaming occurs and people can enjoy the music or the magic show or whatever that may be. Those are the kind of things that could still be done.
Just something. We got to figure something out.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. I miss the breakfast and I miss all the community events.
Yeah.
Pie eating.
Yeah, yes, the pole, the grease pole climb. Yeah. Bring our community back together somehow.
Yeah.
So hopefully tomorrow they'll have even more ideas.
Okay, I think that gives Mr. Cottle a few ideas, take to the Blackberry Jam, and I'm sure they have ideas too on how they do it. And, you know, if not only for movies in the park, maybe we want to make it smaller and maybe the bands come in on several weekends. And if you don't have all the vendors there, then the bands can play and people can spread out. And because the vendors want to be close to the bands because that's where all the people are. And so if the vendors didn't show, then we just had bands, that might be good. And I like the idea of going back to the movies in the park. We've got a lot of support by the citizens in the town. So not only the children, but the citizens. So those are all good ideas.
If Blackberry Jam is supporting bands and we run into a real, I mean, you know, we feel like we can't do that, we could do weekends, like, you know, 2 or 3 different weekends where we have a band in the park or something like that. I don't know.
Even the vendors with their wares could come and we could spread them out further. And I mean that.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If we didn't all cram it all into the park, maybe that would be one way we could, you know.
Yeah. Because that was a huge hit on those small businesses last year was.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Hey, got mayor's comments. I got one. It's not a lot, but it's just one. Went to with all the shutdowns and no going and all this and that, stay at homes and the restrictions that went through COVID, the ODOT lady that was in charge of data and things like that said that there'd only been an 8% decrease in traffic through all this time frame. So, you know, you'd have thought it'd been more, but no, just a lot of people still getting around needing to do. So it was only an 8% decrease in traffic this year. So, any community public comments that want to be? We have Hall O'Regan, I believe, wants to address.
Yeah, that's my name,
Go ahead.
62 East Third.
Huh?
I agree with the council about movie night there in the park. It went over pretty good, and it is strictly a community situation. And so the only problem that we had was that we started it up too late. So we only got a couple movie nights in. If we started that earlier in the summer and continued it through summer, then I think that'd be good. The other thing I got going is I'm getting frustrated because every time they talk about the parks, it's always Rolling Rock. It's never about Paul Fisher. And what gets me is that there's a lot less to do as far as the master plan at Paul Fisher than Rolling Rock, which tells me there's a lot less money involved in refurbishing and redoing Paul Fisher. I also know that we've discussed it. There've been, the community has been involved with the master plan and designs and this and that, but they're seeing no progress at all. And I think they're getting frustrated. So I would like to hear a little bit more about Paul Fisher and not all about Rolling Rock. You know where I sit.
Yeah. No,
So that's what I gotta say.
okay. Thank you.
I see what you did there.
Anybody else? Okay. Not hearing or seeing, anybody else have comments about seeing or hearing anything? What's that?
Nothing. Sorry, it was my grandson.
Oh, okay. He can, if he gives his name and address, he can address us. Okay, not hearing anything, not seeing anything. We're adjourned at 8:01.
And
Cheers.
Nice seeing you, Gail.
I did think of one thing.
Yes,
Jeremy, maybe on our next work plan, we can review the Paul Fisher plan
I agree.
and just look at that again, just refresh all of us where we're at and what we need to be doing.
yeah, we've gone a long ways with that. I agree that there's to finalize and do something this summer, and that would is going to be minimal in cost. So I think we can get with Mr. Baker and things like that. And I see Sean raised his hand. Yes, Sean?
He's not muted. Sean are you there? Do you have any comment to make?
Hey, while he's trying to get back, or you
Mr. Mayor?
also- Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hello. Go ahead, Sean.
can you hear me now?
Sort of.
Thank you, sir. Sean Watson, 5540 First. No,
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
is that better now?
Sure.
Great. Just two comments. Gail, you're really onto something about spreading that out. The Festival of Lights in Portland's last 2 weekends, that's normally all held in a small area down along the waterfront, and what they did is spread that out throughout the city and took that to many different neighborhoods, and so they were able to spread that out and still hold the event. So because each one, I guess, was considered more of an individual site. So you're definitely onto something there. And then the other thing we might want to talk about is seeing about getting the state park or the Corps of Engineer. I think it's through the state that hasn't been watering the state park, the Lowell State Park, during this last few summers. And maybe that's an option so people can actually enjoy the park or along the waterfront this year.
Okay.
Definitely.
Anything else?
Hey, Jeremy, you also sent us in that email something about our property down there on whatever it is, 205-7?
Yes.
Whatever. Are we going to discuss that all together at a later date or what? Do you know?
I'd like to discuss that with each of you and get your direction on if that's something you want to bring to a work session, or if you're good with me moving ahead with leasing that out again. I'd really like to have a more in-depth discussion. And if we need to bring that back to a work session, I'll be happy to put that on the agenda.
Well, I think we probably should, because we're gonna have to start paying on it with no income. So we need to do something there.
Is our next session a work session, right?
Yes.
We can just add that to it, Jeremy.
Anything else? Then we are re-adjourned at 8:06.
And we are done recording. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, you guys. Good to see you.
See you next month.
Good night.
Bye.